Everybody, good to see you. We're here today um, talking about the passage from Matthew. It's amazing how it gets as we keep moving along, and now suddenly we're like on the edge of closer and closer to the end of the year, and so we're moving into the last part of the gospel. And so this is a really interesting passage for a lot of reasons, because it's really loaded, and the conversation that Jesus is having, there's some background info to it, and we compare it to somewhat our own day. And when we make that jump, we'll talk about that. But there's you're going to hear about two different groups today that are coming to attack Jesus. Remember, we're in the last week of his life, and this last part of the gospel, the last quarter of the gospel is spent on the last week of Jesus' life. So 25% of the gospel basically is focused on that last week, and so this is where everything starts churning, where they have this triumphant entry, and then he starts confronting the religious leaders of the day, and then you have this encounter today with the Pharisees and the folks we call the Herodians. We don't know much about them, but we do know this: you have this government. One more time, Rome. They're over. They're the superpower of the day. They're the superpower, and the way they let people do things is, okay, we're in charge, but we're going to let you have local government that's kind of false consciousness. That you get to act like you're in charge, but don't get crazy. Because if you get crazy, then we're going to show up and have Pax Romana, peace of Rome, which means we're going to slaughter a lot of people to have peace. And so you have this group, the Romans, that you have to pay them their tax. You have to pay your taxes to them. So you're paying to a foreign government. We don't even like paying taxes to our own government, but we definitely would not like paying taxes to somebody else's government. So you always have this constant nationalism that kind of bubbles up, when an outsider comes and does something to you. Think about, the most, you think about September 11th, 2001. No matter what was going on in your life, everybody just kind of coalesced and said, wow, somebody from outside came in and attacked us. That's horrendous. And then there's just this kind of nationalism that jumps up. That's what you have with most of the Jews, and probably most other countries of the day against Rome. You're having to pay money to them, and it's not like even for us, we pay taxes, but they're supposedly a lot of them they're supposed to help us out. Like roads and that sort of thing. It's a good thing. And we do it because it's a citizenship thing. It's what we do, even begrudgingly, but it's what we do. But to give your money to another country, it wasn't citizenship. It was, if you don't, we're going to slaughter you. And you just go, oh, okay, I guess I'm going to pay my tax then. But they gripe about it. Now, the Herodians were people. Herod was the Jewish king of the area, so he's a puppet. He's working with the Roman government. And Herodians were people who were just fine with Rome being in charge. They were like, okay, we're going to live with it. We're going to be okay. We're going to work with them because it's going to put money in our pockets. Now, the Pharisees, they were not like that. They saw, they wanted their lives back to like it was when David was king. So David and, back in that day when Israel was in charge, they were their own powerhouse. So you have that going on. So you would think the Pharisees and the Herodians don't get along. They're not interested in being interactive. But yet, here they are working together because they have one goal. Both of them are trying to bump off Jesus because they're afraid of they're afraid of what might happen if people start following him. Then, boy, we might have to face Rome. Rome might come in and pounce on us, and we don't want that. Okay? So, there's that. So, here we are. 22:15 through 22 in Matthew. Then the Pharisees went and plotted to entrap him in what he said. So they sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians, saying, "Teacher, we know that you are sincere and teach the way of God in accordance with truth and show deference to no one. For you do not regard people with partiality. Tell us then what you think. Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not?" But Jesus, aware of their malice, said, "Why are you putting me to the test, you hypocrites? Show me the coin used for the tax." And they brought him a denarius. Then he said to them, "Whose head is this, and whose title?" And they answered, "The emperor's." And then he said to them, "Give therefore to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's." And when they heard this, they were amazed, and they left him and went away. Okay? Familiar? Pretty familiar. Okay. So Jesus asked the Pharisees for one of the coins. Here's the deal. You had to pay the tax with Caesar's coin. So to have the coin, Pharisees would see those coins. First of all, it has an image, which is you put no God before me. And so Caesar was not, the emperor was not just a political figure. He was also a divine figure because they saw him as a god. One of the problems with the early Christians, while they got persecuted, they were called atheists because they wouldn't admit that Caesar was Lord. So they say, well, they're atheists. They don't believe in Caesar as God. And, well, that wasn't totally true. They saw God as God. And so that's where they ran into problems. So the very fact that he goes, "Hey, will y'all show me one of these coins?" and they have one in their person says, that's why he calls them hypocrites. Because you think this is wrong. You think it's wrong to pay the tax because this is not to God, and you have one of them in your pocket. So he first points out how hypocritical they are. Are you cold? Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. I can't touch the heat from here. But they so he's got him right there. He doesn't really even have to answer anything else. All he has to say is, you've got one of the coins on you, so you're giving Rome some credit as we speak. He doesn't have to say anything else at this point. He's pointed out to them, you're just toying with me. And so that aside, but then he goes on and he goes ahead and answers their question, which he could have said, "Wow, it's interesting, the Pharisees and the Herodians here together. Wow, what a cute crowd." But we all know, politics can make for strange bedfellows, as we've heard in our lives. And here they are. And then he says, well, if that's his, then give it to him. Go ahead. But give to God what belongs to God. And we're told that's amazing to them, so they're like, okay, they leave him alone. But really and truly, okay, the first part is a pretty simple response. This is what you do. This is a part of civilian life. This is where it's at. So do that. Pay your taxes.
Was the Senate
Well, that's a great question. Probably not. Maybe it was. I mean, yeah. I mean, they had now the synagogue had their own tax that they put on people too, you know. So, yeah. So remember the widow and the two little, I mean, putting in there, they had their collections. But, well, I suspect, yeah, like you mean the whole notion of, like in our country, we're not taxed yet. We're not taxed yet. I mean, I mean, I can imagine the days coming, that, um, that part of our government will go away.
Well, it's
Because,
kind of like when Henry VIII
yeah,
went through
yeah,
and
yeah,
destroyed all the monasteries
right, yeah,
in England. So
right, yeah,
he
yeah,
wanted that land.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I could see where that day. I mean, maybe not in my time over the next 10 years or so, but after that, maybe. It'd probably put a lot of churches out of business, if they start. I mean, you think about 44 acres here. We had to pay tax on that. Oh, God. Yeah.
Okay,
So,
they're asking him
mhm.
whether
Yeah.
people in
Yeah.
general should pay.
Here's their deal. This is their trap. This is what they're wanting Jesus to say. If Jesus says, no, you shouldn't pay your tax, then he's in trouble with Rome automatically. But if he does say, pay this tax to Rome, then the people who don't want to pay it, who are really incensed by all of this, turn on him. So they figure they've got him either way. Whichever way he answers, somebody is going to be upset with him. And that is their hope. And that's why, interestingly enough, you have the Pharisees who think having the coins is heresy, basically because it's saying Caesar's God, basically, and that you're having it. So the fact that one of them has one of them on them is
What's even more interesting too? I just realized it's a Pharisee and who's the other one?
Herodian. Yeah.
Herodian. It wasn't a
Or
Sadducee.
Herodian.
Where
Yeah.
the Sadducees were the money and the
They were the way up here, right.
The money and rule, where the Pharisees were law. They knew the
Yeah.
gospel. They
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
let's do right. They were trying to do right by following the law.
Right.
And so why wasn't it a Sadducee in there instead of a Pharisee?
Well, the Pharisees are much more like Jesus anyway. Their theology wouldn't be very far apart at all. And the people, because the common people that they're trying to get to turn on Jesus, the Sadducees were nobody. They were kind of their own crowd, They way up here. They're not worried about everybody else. But the Pharisees are trying to get, the common people to turn on Jesus, and they're trying to get him in trouble with Rome. So first of all, just listening to them say, "Oh, Jesus, we know you show no partiality." Just the sheer cruel evil that's in play here. That's one thing. It's almost like in John's gospel when they bring the woman caught in adultery, they're ready to stone her to death. They've basically set this woman up. Because as you all know, there's only one person being brought before them, and adultery is not a solo sport. It takes more than one player, and so they're willing to have this woman's life snuffed out just simply to make a point. So that's pretty brutal. And so here, they're willing to, we're just going to say stuff, to take care of him and get him out of the way. So.
That to me was part of the hypocrisy, was how they approached him in the first place.
Right. Yeah. And or at least it says he understands where this is coming from. And so it is a funny little get back at him that he goes, hey, y'all show me a coin. Oh, yeah, here you go. Oh, yeah, that coin that you just said is really not, but you got one in your pocket. Cool. Just thought I'd point out the obvious to everybody standing here. You know, it's kind of funny. But, so he goes on, and he says, pay to them, pay to Caesar what's Caesar, or the emperor what's emperor, and give to God what is God. So what do we hear there? What's he telling them to do?
Well, he's telling them, he's saying, don't revolt against the government,
Mm-hmm.
but keep your heart pure.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Wow.
Where you're in the world,
Yeah.
but
Mm.
you're also God's.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that John's gospel says you're in the world, but you're not of it. But there is an implication here that they do have civic aspects. Now, and our problem is that this where I always say, okay, now what does it mean to us? Let's keep it very much in mind. To them, it is not the exact same for us. I mean, this is where this is a great divide about them and us. For them, you pay your taxes, or, it's a very brutal ending.
more than just the IRS.
Yeah, it's more than. I mean, the IRS is bad enough. Yeah, and all through the years, I have to say that everybody that's ever been involved with taxes and the like have always told me, you got to keep good records, and you got to be, because they'll come after ministers, and ministers are terrible record keepers. So you just got to, because they will come after you. So be ready. And so it's like I spend my entire life with all of this going. Keep 7 years of records, and so we keep like 10. So we've got stacks of stuff. We're like, hey, look, here's something from 2006. You're just like, oh, okay, maybe it's okay to get rid of that now. But, and that's kind of, but that, so we're always terrified of the IRS. So that's about enough. But for them, it's, let's don't cause any revolt. So he is taking care of that one aspect of the question. Hey, y'all, this is nothing to revolt over. This is not a reason for us to go get slaughtered over. So he answers that part. But then he flips and says, hey, give to God what is God's.
And what do they hear?
No, but that's a great question. Well, I mean, this is Neil's take, and this is kind of where we go. And but for one thing, I suspect, it's the image that's stamped on the coin. That he relies on that. So my assumption is that everybody in the space, especially, those people who are, they're Jewish, they've been raised, they can think of one thing that they hear that day, and that is Genesis chapter 1. And God says, let us make them in our image. So the notion of, well, the image on the coin belongs to Caesar, so you give to him. So the image that is stamped on every one of their lives is God. God's made them in their image. And God, made them in God's image. And so they owe God what belongs to God. And so what is that? Their entire lives, yeah. What belongs to God? Okay. And we say everything. And we go, okay, so everything belongs to God.
Except the coin they gave.
Okay, except for yeah, okay. Interestingly enough, right? Okay. And so this is one of those places, and I say this today in the sermon, this is Bruce Reyes Chow all over again, who was a Presbyterian minister in California. He says it's all that easy and it's all that hard. So what we do, and this week we agonize over this passage, and even last night, at 12 o'clock, midnight, I'm still rewriting the ending because I'm like, I don't like the ambiguity of it. That I really want to tell people, when you walk out those doors today, do dink, 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 okay? And this one, I don't get to do that. And to be quite honest, when I give people exact things to do, I can guarantee you, walking out the door, I get more good sermon, good sermon, good sermon. When I leave ambiguity at the end, people are like, good day. Thank you for nothing, you know. And so some of that's me, my own internal stuff. And but the other thing is that what does this passage mean for us? We can get there now. What does that mean for us? The first part is easy, right? Because in a lot of ways, it is easy for us to pay our taxes because they're taking that stuff out of our checks, you know, and we have people who handle it. I go and hand all my stuff over to this person. They write me back and say, you have to pay this much this year. Or, hey, guess what? You get a little back. And we go, oh, wow, that's okay, cool, yay. Or, oh, my God, what happened? And so that's that. That part's simple to me. It's a part of our civic duty. We like riding on nice roads. And I know it's more complicated than that, please. I get it. But when it comes down to it, there. The second part, give back to God what is God's. We hear God's voice, let's make them in our image. We are...
You need to be more like Jesus was, if you can.
Okay. Yeah, be like Jesus. I'll never forget Willie Jennings saying that one day in class, in school. Professor Jennings, he said, your model is Jesus. My little hand went up and said, but Jesus died on a cross. He said, yep, there you go, even if it takes that. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's not near as cool as it sounds, man. And he's like, sorry. But give back to God what belongs to God.
Well, I think we need a reminder that we're stewards.
Okay, Stuart, that's okay, that's good. Boy, I wish you'd have been around Tuesday. But yeah, I can't fit that in now. Go ahead. But, no, maybe. I hate to go off script. I screw up when I do. So, but you're okay, we are reminded to be stewards. And so it brings us back to this serious discussion. How do we do that? How do we give back to God what belongs to God? And I mean, it's easy for me to say that. Hey, y'all, everything belongs to God. So when y'all walk out the door today, remember, everything belongs to God. And y'all can go, yeah, cool. Give back to God what belongs to God. Yeah, no, that's right. Well, then we go. It's easy when we make these broad, kind of vague, ambiguous comments. Then we can go, ooh, cool. Where are we going for lunch? And then it's over. Because to say, give back to God what is God. Well, wait a second. I mean,
What is, we go, how do we do that?
how do we do that?
How do I?
And that's why I'm up at 12 o'clock on Saturday night going, what's that mean? What does that mean? Because we have other obligations, don't we? Work calls on it. You say, to give back to God, what is God? So, well, I got to give all my time to God, right? Because all time belongs to God. Okay, everybody, tell me how you do that.
I think because everything, literally everything belongs to God.
Mm-hmm.
My children belong to God. They're not my children.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a house. It's really God's house.
Mm-hmm.
It's a thoughtful process of to be thankful,
Mm-hmm.
to give glory to Him. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not, we all take everything for granted. The roof over our house, the hot water coming out of the,
Yeah, you see, that's, okay,
Being thankful for it,
right.
the start, and to give God thanks and praise.
And it
That's
is,
what we made.
and we have, and our family obligations pull on our time and pull on our finances and, work obligations. There's also the Caesar of self. We also like ourselves, and so we like to spend money on
Coffee.
ourselves. I mean, you know, and so so we have this amazing, difficult discussion within our heads, and as a congregation, too, what it means to give back to God what belongs to God. I mean, come on, y'all. Seriously, we say everything belongs to God, but let somebody come try and sit in our pew, and it's like, oh, that's mine. Well, no, it's not. We just said, and then, you know, and then when it comes to church work, we talk a lot about them and us. Well, this is ours. This is our building. This is our congregation. This is our stuff. Is it? Yeah.
It seems to me that if God has given us the gift of our lives,
Mm-hmm.
that how we behave responsibly with those lives gives back to God.
That's
I
it.
mean, if
Okay.
you're taking care of your family, and
Yeah.
if you're taking care of the community,
Mm-hmm.
instead of just wasting your life, it seems like
Mm-hmm.
that would be giving back in some way. I want the list. I want the list of things to do.
I love it. Thank you, because that's in the sermon. I don't have a refrigerator list for you today. That's just it. It is this constant. It is how we use our money, how we use our time, how we vote, how we interact with our community, how we interact with our neighbors. That's always in play with us. So really and truly what he's given us, that second line, which is so vague and easy, oh yeah, everything belongs to God. We're very comfortable saying that. But the rubber meets the road with, do we believe it? And if we believe it, how do we live into it? And it is always this constant struggle, interaction with our lives every day, that when our feet hit the floor tomorrow morning, we go, how is it that I'm giving back to God what belongs to God?
Well, the one thing we need to, maybe we didn't do as good a job yesterday. Today is a new opportunity.
Okay. I like that too.
If God will
Yeah.
ask, God's time is always right.
Yeah.
And when he comes to, and gives us direction,
Mm-hmm.
then it's okay. What happened yesterday doesn't matter.
Well, you know, this is listening to this conversation makes me think back to, oh my gosh, I can't even believe that's bad. He was a preaching professor at Louisville, and now he's at Vanderbilt. And I had an opportunity to continue in ed with him about 20 years ago, right when he was writing this book about roundtable preaching. And so he encouraged pastors to get together with their congregation and do what we're doing today instead of right before, the week before. Let's say what we should do is start doing next Sunday's passage this Sunday, so then y'all could write my sermon for me, and then that would be just like super cool. It's just, it would, yeah. So I always wanted to do that and never had the courage to actually pull it off.
Well, it might be just as well. You might lose your job because.
Yeah, well, it could be. You see, and then I'd be taking care of myself again and not giving to Caesar of self as opposed to giving to Caesar one. So there is it does bring, it brings me back to that place where I'm always going to, where the TV preacher says, you know, come to Jesus and all your problems are solved. And it says, you listen to Jesus today, and oh my gosh, you know, every day, all the time is filled with this impact of God's image is imprinted on each and every one of us in this room. So to give back to God what belongs to God is like everything. And that's easy to say. And I think it's also what we're saying in this room today. There's we have to be honest with ourselves about it. That I am going to be pulled this way and that way tomorrow with every aspect of my life, about my money, about my ideology, about my family, about work or not work, or everything is going to tug at my time and my money and my life and how I act and interact. And yet, this statement from Jesus pushes back against all that and says, okay, which one is the way you're supposed to go, whether it's comfortable or not? Because even Jesus was honest with that, as you were saying. He gave us an example of what it means to give everything to God. And right before that, in the Garden of Gethsemane, he's going, I'm not a big fan.
Take this away.
Not a fan. But, you know, stamped. So let's go forward. And so sometimes the answer is not comfortable for us. Probably more times than we ever want to think. All right. There you go. Let's pray. Gracious God, we give thanks for a text that really push us and stretch us. And so tomorrow morning, when we wake up to face our day, you are there to call us to give our lives to you, each and every way. May we be faithful in the struggle. It's in your name we pray. Amen.